Save the best for last.
Yeah, as promised, world's biggest Bible. That's not true. There are bigger Bibles than this, I'm sure.
I'm stepping out of my studio and into the real world to connect with the artists and bookbinders who inspire me. Come along on the bookish field trips I've always dreamt of as we learn all about bookbinding. Ever wonder how they keep centuries-old books and manuscripts alive? Today we're visiting the UCLA Library's Preservation Lab to get an inside look at the fascinating world of book and paper conservation. I'd like you to meet Nicole Alvarado.
Hey. Welcome to Preservation. This is where all of our circulating collections come in and out of our space. We have 12 libraries that we service. All of our libraries send stuff to us for repair, reformatting, or processing.
I have been so curious about your work and your job because you're one of the first book and paper conservators I've met. I think a lot of young people watching would be really curious to know how you got here and what a book and paper conservator does.
A book conservator works on bound material specifically. I do both book and paper conservation. That just means that I can work on bound material and unbound material. For special collections, that means things that are really old, 1300s and before that. We have a lot of incunables, we have parchment bindings. We get to see firsthand materials that not everyone knows exist. I brought out some materials for you to see. A manuscript from Armenia from the 1400s. It was 2 sections of a gospel. There's illuminations. So I bound this with an integrated handling edge. This also acts as interleaving. This will protect the illuminations from rubbing against each other.
Do you get them translated?
We know very few languages, I would say. We can identify what a language might be. We're not expected to be able to read all of the things we work on.
The calligraphy is just so beautiful.
The scribes that would write the Gospels would study for years and years before they got to actually write a whole book. And it's really cool. You can see the rubrication here, right? These lines, someone scored that into the parchment so that all of the text is straight. I did another treatment element. This one, there's a crease here and here that was obscuring some text and some of the illumination. So I had to humidify it and tension dry the parchment just so that it would be less obstructive of the text. I found out about conservation my junior year of college. I was an art major, chemistry minor, which is not like a typical thing to do. And it was in my organic chemistry class that I learned about conservation. Our professor showed us an article about Van Gogh's paintings and how the yellows are turning brown. And he helped me get my first internship with a private paintings conservator. And yeah, I thought I was going to be a paintings conservator for a while. It wasn't until I had an internship at Huntington Library that I got to work with books, and it just sort of clicked. I don't know how important this is to you, but our patron saint, Dolly Parton, is very important to us. So ALA has this poster, and we're like, do we need this? The answer was yes. This is the book and paper special collections area. Over here we have our ductless fume hood where we do mold remediation, solvent work, and anything that we don't want to breathe in. We have our vacuums here that we use for vacuuming molds and insect
Brass?
gunk. Brass, yes. We have solvent cabinet for our flammable materials to keep them safe. Over here we have our cabinets where we store our active treatments. This also provides just an extra layer of buffering between the ambient air and the item, right? There's a kind of like a microclimate in there that keeps them at a better equilibrium.
So are you working on most of these, or do they get assigned to different people?
Right. Shayla Metzger and I share a lot of this work. We also have stuff in here that's designated for loans.
You kind of landed on it naturally, it seems.
Yeah, it kind of felt like it was made for me, which I know it wasn't because conservation has existed for, a while. I did a bunch of internships for like 4 years. It took me 3 or 4 times to get into grad school. It's a highly competitive program. I went to the Garment Art Conservation program at SUNY Buffalo State. I had a Master of Arts and a CAS, Certificate of Advanced Study, which I'm still really proud of.
Nice.
It's a 3-year program. 2 years are on site, learning from all specializations. So there's paper, objects, and paintings are like the 3 main conservation specializations, and then there's subsets. I studied library and archive conservation, primarily books, but also unbound material. I have another Armenian text here that is a scroll. Well, it was a scroll, and now it's in these folders. This would have been like the top, right? And that would have been on the innermost part of the scroll. And then at the end, it would have wrapped around and done a little like tie off. So this came to the lab because it had a lot of lining material, scrap paper, fabric, whatever they had on hand, tape. Of course, there's always tape. Yeah, so this was in fragments after washing. The paper is too stiff to be re-rolled, and there's a lot of break points. They don't hold their weight enough to be on a scroll. These are losses that I filled with Japanese paper, and that's just to have a continuous sheet, but also it helps with the stability of the paper. Instead of illuminations, we have woodblock printing. There's an endless amount of imagery in this scroll. It doesn't seem to be complete in terms of it being like the 4 Gospels, but it's still super important. This is our only example of early printed Armenian text.
It's not parchment, is it?
No, this is paper for sure. These look like they might be chain lines. It's like horizontal striations. They didn't necessarily read them a lot, but they would have carried them with them as like a talisman for protection, very sacred. These are 2 texts from our Islamic Manuscripts initiative. We have about 2,000 in our special collections. This one is an Urdu manuscript. I rebound it because it came to us in a side sewn structure. So you can see the holes here from the side sewing. It needed to be disbound for digitization. And in doing that, we uncovered an original sewing hole, which let's see if I can find it. The sewing that I used is the same spacing that the original sewing was in.
So it was sewn a different way before the side stitching.
Right, yeah, it would have been sewn in a traditional Islamic style. And this one also has some really lovely illuminations. And this is in just a paper case, so this just comes on out. And then the back of the book can be accessed. I did that so that there's as little adhesive on the binding as possible. We want it to be as reversible as possible.
It's called a book sofa.
Yeah, so, right, it's kind of like a little couch for the book to rest on. And we prefer these over like the foam wedges because, well, first this can come off and be washed, but also you can change the angle of it depending on like how you adjust the beans.
Right.
It's kind of like a beanbag. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's like
It looks
foam
cozy.
beads in there. Yeah, so this one is in Arabic text, and this rolling of the two columns is indicative of poetry. The text block just basically in individual sheets as opposed to in sections, so I had to recreate the sections so that this can be accessed safely. I did some repairs along the folds, and then
Oh, wow. Okay, it's clicking. So you had to convert these individual sheets into sections in order to bind it.
right.
Okay.
The innermost bifolios of the sections were slightly attached, if not intact. So I was able to then count like, okay, so 3 on this side, so then 3 on the other side of this folio, right? And so that's how I was able to recreate the sections for this. This is just resting inside of its binding, right? So this can come out, and there's some notes on the back of the book. But the reason I didn't reattach this into the cover is because it has these leather doublures that have an extension onto the text block, and those extensions are very brittle and stiff. I just really love this cover, so I wanted to try to be able to reuse it as opposed to rebinding. Somebody really loved this. They put a chemise on it.
Yeah.
They sewed it through the spine even, right? They're sewing here
yeah.
and here. I had to undo that to clean out all of the debris. This, I don't know if you noticed, but there's some insect damage, especially like at the top and bottom. A lot of frass. Frass is just insect poop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In case you're wondering.
So the cover is a leather cover, and then at one point someone decided to protect it with the cloth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so lovely that, somebody took the effort to do this, and
Yeah.
they even put ties.
Yeah,
So I
it's
wanted
so
to keep
cute.
it all together.
So how much did you have to learn about like Islamic bindings to be able to?
A lot. We refer to this book a lot, the technique of Islamic bookbinding. It goes through different styles of bindings, how they were sewn, the different elements to the book. We have an intern this summer.
Yeah, so I'm here for the summer. I'm working on a book model based on this one, an Islamicate structure, just so I can start to learn how it works in preparation of the kind of projects I'll probably be involved in during my time here.
Yeah, great.
That's really cool. Yeah. Can I see that book? Nicole was telling me earlier that this envelope flap actually goes on the text block and then that goes over it. And it feels counterintuitive for me because I've seen it the other way around, but it's really cool to know that like traditionally it's like this.
Yeah, and for other cultures it might be different, but
Yeah.
in the Islamic practice, this is how the books are protected on the foredge.
And I think if I remember correctly, I think it's also just like Western collectors may have just like not really known. And a lot of the time they would do it like that.
Yeah.
Not really knowing what the traditional way was.
That's a good point.
Started the primary and band structure over which the rest of it will be woven onto.
So over here we have our Bonnie Cashin collection that's been rehoused in garment boxes. There's a photo of what's in there, which is going to be really helpful for these being pulled for patrons. They'll be really identifiable and then people can search them in our catalog. So this is Devin Matlin. She's been rehousing the Bonnie Cashin collection.
Yeah, I'm a library projects conservator here, so I work on rehousing whatever specialty items the special collections has, I guess. Yeah, my current project is rehousing the Bonnie Cashin garment collection. There's about 80 garments in this collection. I think our collection spans from like the 1950s to 1977. She was the first designer for Coach, You can see the signature Coach hardware on her garments. She's also really pioneered like women's outerwear. And I personally really like her because all her designs have massive pockets in them. And they feel really practical.
Yeah.
Like she'll even have like a jacket and a skirt set, and it'll be both will have pockets.
Nice.
And I'm like, ugh, a lady who knows how to design other ladies.
Yeah, for sure.
She really understood our needs.
Yeah, big pockets.
Yeah, for snacks.
A lot of what we have is only here or one other place or something, you know. It's really important that the items are stable and actually safe to handle. And that can mean, you know, rebinding or just, you know, tear repair, right? Being able to turn a page is so important. And you don't really think about that when you're reading a book, right? You're just like, oh, like I read a great story or I learned a new thing. And our researchers not only are interested in the text, sometimes they're interested in the structure of the book itself. So part of our work is to intervene as little as possible.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the episode. If you like what you see, consider donating to our crowdfunding campaign to support the show. We are a 2-person team making this with a lot of heart and passion for bookbinding. There's lots more to come, so stay tuned.
This is a book of woodblock prints from Kuniyoshi Uragawa, who was an artist that inspired a lot of manga now. You can see there's a lot of warrior scenes, very vibrant colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really beautiful. There's a lot of layers to this. Like you can open up more.
There's like text on the inside too.
Yeah. So this was a reused binding. So that's also why it's so thick, right? So these would have been printed on individual sheets and then they were adhered to a reused text block. Right, you could see inside of that one that it had writing. There's other areas where there's like doodles and like stamps.
These prints are incredible.
Yeah.
They just pop out.
So this one came to us because there was some delamination of the prints and then the external sewing structure was also broken. So this is a new thread. These side sewn bindings have 2 forms of attachment. You can feel it here, right here. So that's like a staple that is attached with the Japanese paper that's just tied together, like a paper staple, basically.
Right.
And that's what's actually holding the text block together. And then this essentially holds the cover to the text block.
Oh, okay.
And then these silk corners add like a little extra protection to the head and tail of the spine. So we've sort of moved away from just straight rebinding everything, right? We try and save as much of the original as possible and do what we can to put it back together with what we have and adding as little new material as we can.
I bet the colors were even more vibrant.
Yeah. Oh, this is a repair that I did. So this was all separated here. And there's a bit of insect damage. So I was able to feed new Japanese paper underneath the prints and then reattach the prints to that new paper. These kinds of books would have been rebound in that the external sewing would have been undone and the covers would have been replaced. But those paper staples likely would have remained intact. Right, because that's keeping the book together even when that external sewing comes undone.
Do you know if this is like basically an art book for the artist or?
So I think that somebody compiled this. I don't think the artist did this. 100 Warriors, I think, is the official title. But Right, so that's why most of these are like warrior poses. Somebody else would have collected these and bound them.
I see. I think I saw one woman.
Yeah, there aren't many women in this, especially because it's mostly warrior poses. So then women weren't allowed to be in the army necessarily.
Yeah, I was like happy to just see one.
This is our wet area. We have multiple sinks and an extra large sink to do wet treatments. So that would be washing, humidifying, and triage for any sort of books that come to us wet. We'll use the sink to fan them out so that they can dry. For those interested in pursuing conservation, I would say that you have to have hand skills. You can be passionate all you want about preserving collections, but if you can't hold a brush straight or cut a straight line, it's easy to cause more damage than good. So that's sort of like the first thing, right? You have to be able to be gentle with what you're working on and have a steady hand. It's a labor of love. So we care about the collections and we care for the collections. You kind of need both to be able to do the job, do it well, and keep coming back every day.
That's good advice about the hand skills.
You don't know until you're trying to do a thing that's like high dexterity.
And you only have like one chance.
There's a lot of things that are reversible, but there's certain things that you can't come back from.
Yeah.
Accidentally tearing a page is fine. You can fix that. But breaking something to the point that you need to rebind it, then you've lost that history, that materiality.
Save the best for last.
Yeah, as promised.
Yeah.
World's biggest Bible. That's not true. There are bigger Bibles than this, I'm sure.
It's very big.
Yeah, it is big. It's heavy too. So let's see if I can get it out of here. Do you want to try and pick it up?
Sure. Oh, yeah. It's actually lighter than I thought.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a German text of a Hebrew Bible. This came to us with all of the sewing supports, and the sewing was broken, except for in this area where the leather spine covering was still intact. So it needed a full rebind. I worked very closely with our rare book curator, Devin Fitzgerald, on how to reassemble the spine. I left this panel mostly open. The other panels underneath as well have a cloth lining on top of this Japanese paper lining, which we do on all books that we work on as like a barrier layer. So that's attached with paste. I also covered the sewing supports so that none of the sewing on the exposed supports can catch.
Wow. How was the process of sewing it?
It was intense. It
Yeah.
took a while. I had to reestablish some of the spine folds. We call it guarding the sections, and that can add to thickness of the paper. After the text block was sewn, I actually compressed it at the spine more after I had taken it off of the sewing frame. I had to get the text block to be about the same thickness at the spine as what it originally was. This book you can see is like very wedge shaped.
Yeah.
And that would have been the case to begin with. Most books that have forage clasps are wedge shaped so that the clasps maintain tension.
Right.
And it's just the style of the binding. Yeah, it is quite dramatic. This is paper, so it doesn't have the same kind of spring that a parchment text block would, right? Like it does kind of compress a little bit, but not to the extent that a parchment binding would. We wanted to try and maintain as much of the original as possible. I mean, we got pretty close actually. So like this is new leather here. The leather spine piece that is here is actually lined with new leather on the underside, yeah.
see.
And then this also has an extension here. It's just Japanese paper that's toned, kind of stippled as well. The leather that I chose was, like, the base tone was the same as, like, the suede of this leather. So then I could add the darker tones on top of that just to integrate it a bit better. What's doing most of the work is actually the sewing support. You can see here, so the cloth lining goes actually under here,
Oh yeah.
and then the sewing supports go on top. So that also creates more stability in the joint because it's like sandwiched instead of just on one side of the board. When I said earlier about our work being invisible, right? We
Yeah.
try to integrate what we've done as seamlessly as possible.
And to a bookbinder, like this is the nerdy stuff that I like to see.
Yeah, the materiality.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it opens pretty well. Can sort of get into here. All right. Cool.
Good job. It's very apparent throughout the day that it really takes time to like take care of things and provide access.
We don't do things quickly, but we do them well.
Yeah, it's like I really appreciate that.
Something that I really love about my job is that people are able to touch the things that I work on. You can make a painting pretty again, but it's just gonna be on a wall. You can't touch it usually, especially in a museum, right? The security is just like back away. For books, that's not the case. You need to handle it to access its information, to learn from it. When I was learning about paintings conservation, it was lacking that one thing of like, people can use this. If it's a circulating book, they can take it home. You know, like the researcher or the student patron is a part of that book.
What do you think about the books that Nicole showed us? Do you have any takeaways on the art of conservation? I encourage you to check out your local special collections because I know that the librarians and conservators would be happy to show you. Thank you to Nicole for an inspiring day at the lab and sharing your deep knowledge and experience on book conservation. This was episode 3 of All About Bookbinding. You can watch episodes 1 and 2 on my channel. Episode 1 takes place in San Francisco, and for episode 2, we traveled to Tokyo, Japan to interview a miniature book artist. This series is made possible thanks to all my patrons and donors. I'm so grateful to have you supporting me in many different ways. And I have the confidence and motivation to keep going because of you. To be a supporter, you can donate to my crowdfunding campaign so I can keep All About Bookbinding going. You can also become a patron for only $5 a month. Thank you for being here. Happy bookbinding!